Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show with my co-host, Yolanda Smith from the... No, not from the... I messed up, so let me do this again. The owner of Branding for Success, Yolanda Smith. You think I would have gotten this right? How many takes we done?
About 4, and this is like, what, the 20th episode, so it's okay. Glad to be here.
Of season 2.
Of season 2.
Lord have mercy. It's been a long, long day.
Hey, it's all good. I just got back on vacation, so I'm feeling
I saw
fine.
that on social media, and I didn't get an invite, huh?
I am so sorry. Next time.
Next
time. There's
next
always
week?
a next. In 2 weeks,
See,
we're
that's what I'm
back at it
talking about.
again. He thinks I am a professional vacationer.
You are a professional vacationer.
But we have an exciting show today.
We sure do. You
Yes.
know what? Last year was trial and error with closings, with pandemics, more importantly with schools and students trying to figure out their place with their school system, with their parents, with the pandemic,
Virtually,
virtual,
yeah,
a whole new array of things going
Yeah.
on. Today in studio, I'm going to let you introduce the host.
Oh, I love it. We are so excited.
Not the host.
He's
Our
not
guest.
it's
He's our guest.
He's the guest. It's all right. Andre will get it together because
Sooner
you know
or
what?
later.
This is what makes a podcast exciting. It's natural. It's real. It's what we do. But today in the studio we have Mr. Michael Dunagan with us, the principal of Options Charter School. He is currently over the Westfield campus, but Andre met him some time ago as the principal over at the Carmel campus. So welcome, Mike. We're glad
Welcome,
to have
Mike.
you.
How you doing?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you wound up being the principal at the Options School, which was, let's get it straight first.
Okay.
Options Carmel,
Yes.
new location, Options Westfield,
New campus.
new campus, Westfield, off of Cary and 32.
Yep, right behind the Huntington Bank over there on Gunther Boulevard. Right behind it, right there at 32. Yes, our brand new, beautiful campus.
I visited, and it definitely is beautiful.
So that sounds like an expansion, but before we get to the expansion, you could tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved with the charter schools, and then maybe even help the viewers understand what is a charter school and how is it different from a traditional school.
Right.
Well, first, a little bit about myself. I graduated with an undergraduate from Ball State University in secondary education. And I went to work shortly after that at Stonegate Early College High School. We were one of the early charter schools, and our focus there was taking your middle of the road or just failing students and supporting them to heading to college. And so we graduated some of the first students in the state of Indiana with associate's degrees and high school diplomas at the same time.
Wow.
From there, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about charter schools, but that school no longer exists. But from there, I then finished my master's at Ball State, and then I went to work at Charter Schools USA, was brought in by the state of Indiana to run a couple of IPS's schools that had been chronically failing. Okay. And so I started at the turnaround at Emidonin Middle School, and then I became the principal of Emidonin after 2 years. And then while at Emidonin, I led Emidonin off the failing list, which was the goal of the turnaround. And then at the same time, we opened a K-6 elementary at Emidonin and led that to an A rating for schools for 2 years. And then after doing that for a little while, I decided I was there 7 years, so I was a principal 5 years there, and I wanted to get back to high school, working with the older kids. And so I jumped at the opportunity to join Options at their Carmel campus. And after coming on board, finding out that I would be helping them with opening a new campus in Westfield and moving the Carmel into its own building. specifically designed for what we do at Options. And so I've
Sounds
been with
great.
Options 2 years.
So help people understand, what is a charter school? Because what you just told me, I'm kind of thinking this man is the redeemer of the schools. He's
Right.
helping them to really get beyond these failing grades. But it's not just for failing students, right? Can you explain?
No. So
Yeah.
the charter school movement has been around for a very long time. In fact, I was still in school when the charter school movement began. Here in Indiana, the first charter schools opened in 2002. After I'd left, I was out of high school by then. Don't worry, I'm not that young. And we opened up some of the first ones, Options being one of the first charter schools in the state of Indiana. Now, a charter school gets its name from how it's created. So if we think back, I was a history teacher, so if we think back to the original colonies in the United States, there were different types of colonies. And one of those colonies was called a charter colony, and it was created because they wrote a charter, which was a piece of paper that outlined how the colony would work. Well, charter schools are very similar. They're created by a document that spells out, here's what the school is, here's what we stand for, here's our mission, here's how we are going to function, and then an organization will sponsor them. For Options, Ball State University is the sponsor.
Gotcha.
And so there are a couple universities. The mayor's office in Indianapolis, which is oddly enough one of the only mayors in the country, is another charter sponsor. And so Options is out of Ball State University, which is exciting since I'm a two-time graduate of Ball State. And so that's who sponsors us, and then the charter creates us. So they're called charters because of how they're created.
And
just like Lawrence Township,
Yes.
Township, it's created by the township that makes them, and that's where
Right.
the names come from.
And that's where the funding comes from.
So the funding comes from the same place as it does for all other public schools, and that's for butts and seats.
Okay.
It's enrollment.
Number.
So there's count days in the year, and so in September there's a magical day called Count Day, and all the schools turn in, here's how many students are enrolled at our school
Actively.
and then the state says, okay, that's how much money you get. And then there's a second count in February just to see if there's any adjustments or changes. And then they give you your second half of your money based off of how many kids are enrolled. There are lots of extra monies that come from local property taxes and things that charter schools aren't a part of. But the biggest part of the funding comes from the tuition of students being enrolled in the school that comes from the state.
So let me ask you this. You mind? I know I've just taken over, haven't I?
Hey, you're the co-host. I'm letting you run.
Because I do have this question, because I think that just based on my understanding, which is limited, my child goes to a township school, but I've heard of charter schools, and I understand that sometimes they get a negative rap. I mean, it's not so positive, and there's been a lot of them that have closed. So kind of help us understand what's going on here, and how can you give us the real skinny here? You know what I mean? We're gonna dish a little bit dirt. Before you do that, I better give a shout out to my brother. You're talking about Ball State. Jason Whitlock is my brother. He went to Ball State. Do you know who Jason
yes.
is?
Yes, I do.
Yes, that's my brother. So anyway, we'll shout him out today. I know we
Anybody
normally
else we
don't.
need to shout out?
We normally don't shout out, but today, Jason, we giving you a shout out for Ball State. Okay. Yes.
So I think actually one of the things you brought up was a bad rap was the closing of charter schools. I think that's actually one of the positives, is you can close a charter school. When a charter school is not doing its job or doing its job well, they're closed. And so some people are like, oh, well, you know, they close down charter schools. And you're like, well, and when a business is not successful, they close.
Good point. Good point.
And so charter schools can be closed. So Ball State has closed a lot of charter schools over the years for failing to meet the expectations set upon them. And so each school has expectations that they're measured upon, just like the state measures schools by letter grades. Charter schools are measured by those letter grades, and the university or sponsor, they'll have targets that they expect the charter school to hit, and if they don't hit those, then they'll close them. Now, some of them will close for money, not just because it's expensive to run schools. And when a lot of charter schools' mission is to be a smaller environment for students, to go counter of the larger school districts, then it's expensive and money gets tight when you're, fine. So some of them have been closed just because the schools realize, you know what, we can't afford to keep going and rather go into debt then they've had to close some of them.
But it sounds like accountability too, though. There's accountability there, which, I mean, we know that, and I'm not saying it, I'm saying it for a friend, that sometimes if you look at the public school systems, they're not doing well, but they still stay open.
Yeah.
And continue to not do well and not serve the students well. So, I mean.
Well, and to be fair, I was in the IPS area working in a charter school before coming to options. And IPS, over the last several years, has kind of changed their tune from being, we're not fans of charter schools are bad, to partnering with them and utilizing their approaches and their different ideas or takes into education to try to help some of those schools that they've had trouble finding success in.
Wow,
and so I think
good.
that's a positive and something we need to recognize with our public schools when they're willing to be like, you know what, we don't know all, and let's partner with some other people who have some ideas and see if we can find success for our students. And so that's what IPS has been doing with their innovation schools.
Okay.
I did open one of the first innovation schools. And so to see them continue that and seeing many of those innovation schools finding success, and then IPS holding those schools accountable to make sure they are finding success, to renew their contracts, to continue to run the schools for them. I think that's a great way of school districts and charter schools working together, which happens in a lot of other states and hadn't been happening a lot here.
Gotcha.
So why do you see the schools closing in the outside suburban areas? You said something about performance. Is it the teachers? Is it the community? What is it that they're closing down, and what makes the outer reaches different than the suburban reaches? Like, say, for instance, a Carmel going into, let's say, a Bar Whipple or a Marion County system.
So the urban versus the rural versus urban.
Yeah, is there really a difference? Because if you guys are governed by the same rules, I mean, shouldn't it be the same across the board? There has to be some reason why those other schools didn't live up to expectations.
Well, when you're looking at a charter school, again, like I told you, in the charter, it spells out how they're going to operate and what they're going to do. And so they lay out their plan before they're even approved, and you have to be researched backed.
And that can be different for each charter
That's what I was
school.
gonna say.
They
Is it
may be
different?
focused on certain things depending on the demographic that they're
And
serving.
so if you go around to every charter school, you're going to see a lot of similarities to your traditional public schools. Just like if you go to different public schools, they have different takes. Even within IPS, they have super school, which is a different take. They have open school concepts. If you've been into some of the schools where they don't have walls and their classrooms are all open air school. There are different theories in education, and so you'll see those differences. In charter schools, part of the purpose of them is to bring about innovation and change, and often they are smaller than their neighboring schools. Some of them can grow and become larger or set to be larger based on their theory of how they believe schools need to be set up to be successful. And so the whole point of that is to try to come up with innovative ideas that, if it works, then maybe that's something that the rest of the public schools can take and learn from each other. So that's part of it. Part of it is set up to be a place to try new things and see if we can be successful. But I think, Andre, getting back to your point about with different inputs come different outputs, right?
Right.
And so I think with our inner city populations, which I was a principal at an inner city school, the inputs are a bit different in the fact that the students coming to them, many of them remind me a lot more of my students that I see at options, is that a lot of them are coming with trauma.
Right.
And things that have happened in their lifetime, and that trauma affects the whole child. It's not something they compartmentalize, and the minute they walk into a school building, they can become a little robot and learn just however the teacher decides they need to learn. It impacts the whole child. And so one of the things that we're doing at Options, is we're trying to be a trauma-informed school and trying to make sure we understand that every student is different and that we attack every student's learning differently because of that. Now, that you still have to do some things whole class, right? And you want to treat every student fairly, but you can't treat every student exactly equally.
Gotcha.
And so
there's no cookie cutter approach to this.
There isn't.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we do at Options is we individualize. So all of our students have individualized service plans, or ISPs. It's similar in some ways to an IEP that students get for having a learning disability. We do that with all of our students to individualize what we're doing with them, so that we can identify, all right, what is it that this student needs. And Andre can tell you, because we've talked before, and we have open conversations with each of our families coming in. And we ask them, like, what is your student struggling with? And so Options is not only a charter school, but we're also an alternative school. So we are an alternative to the traditional schools that surround us. So in Westfield is Westfield, and the Noblesville schools, we have a Noblesville campus. And then we have an online campus that's all over the state that services kids. We were in 129. I believe we're up to almost 150 school districts. And then we also have some specialty programs out of Fishers and Kokomo that are partnerships with BACA for students with autism.
Oh, nice.
And so we treat each student differently, and we try to look at what we can do best for each one of those students and work with them.
Now, what I thought was really good, and you said, I like this phrase that you said, and it's about the trauma that the kids go through when they walk through your door. And best believe, with everything that's been happening, and probably before, and like we talked about with the pandemic, the online learning, now going back into the school, you guys offer something I thought was really unique. When you're dealing with trauma, you guys actually have in your school system some type of behavior person that they go to when they first come into the school. Tell me about that.
So we've been really lucky. Relationships are kind of the biggest thing for us at our school. So it's belong, believe, achieve is our motto. And so the first part is belong. For students to find success, the achieve down the road, they got to feel like they belong. So one of the first things we do is all of our students will have advisors. Now, unfortunately, due to the pandemic last year, we weren't able to keep it the same person all year because of mixing or moving groups around. But traditionally, that's a person they're with all year long, and that person's goal is to try to be the adult who knows that student best. But even as educators and teachers and going through trauma-informed training, we're not experts, especially mental health experts. Right. And so we partner. We have a mental health specialist. They come in a couple days a week and meet with some of our students who need more than we can even provide. And so that's on top of our students who may be getting
parents
served.
Supportive of this method that you guys do at the school with the trauma, or basically addressing trauma with their child? You know, with parents now, they really might blow it out of, my kid doesn't need this. Have you have any resentment from any parents having that their child be involved in that,
or maybe resistance?
Or resistance?
Yeah, I had one of my first this past year. We have a counselor as well at our building, right. Who. One of the first people our students meet after coming to school, the counselor will pull the students and introduce themselves and say, hey, this is who I am. I'm here if you ever need me. There are other adults here in the building that you can ask for a break to come talk to at any time, and I'll mention those in a second. But yeah, I had a parent, who contacted me shortly after and said I did not give permission for my student to talk with when they were asking questions about the family and the home. And I was like, I am so sorry. Normally, we try to have our counselors introduce them to the families early on, but with the pandemic last year, we're really limited in how many people we could have in meetings and things. So they were a little caught off guard by that. Yeah. I think most of the time, though, Andre, yes, because for you to come to Options at this point, our parents have, because it's a choice. That's one thing about charter schools, is a choice to go there. No one's forced to go to them. They realize things aren't going well where they are. Now,
in the traditional setting.
That doesn't mean they might not be passing classes, but the parents are going, they're not doing as well as they could be or should be, and they might not be doing, maybe its grades are okay, but they realize that there's some mental health that's just not what they're not well,
or maybe they don't feel like they belong, like you said. Now, your daughter goes to a charter school, goes to Options,
right? So
you made a decision to pull your daughter from a traditional school and put her there. Talk about that a little bit.
She was actually in the Carmel school system. She's still there and still goes there until the next school semester. But she kept a secret. She was uncomfortable with the settings there. But what I found that was really strange is when I talked with the staff there and mentioned going to options, they praised that school. And I remember asking you, I said, well, why did they keep it such a dark? No, they said, we're not supposed to really say this, but it's a good school. And I'm thinking, what do you mean you're not supposed to say it? It's kind of like it was.
Well, you heard what he just said. He said butts in the seats get the dollars. So obviously you may not want to be just, deterring your students from going to another school when that's a source of funding as well. But it's in the best interest of the child, however.
When Cinnamon decided to go to the school, we went there and toured it, and I had clients that attended options long before Cinnamon even went there. I just didn't know anything about the school. And I was like, okay, it's your choice. Let's get in there. Let's meet the staff. And Mike was very warm, very inviting. It was straight to the core. And my mission was that I wanted to make sure that she had the best options moving forward. That's not even talking about now. I'm talking about moving forward from going into high school. It was too much for her to go to a bigger high school, Carmel. Not knocking Carmel school. They're great schools, but my child is my child. And if she's uncomfortable with a larger college type setting, then I need to make the appropriate accommodations. That school allowed that to happen. Plus, Mike, you can tell me some of the other things that your school can provide for that child moving forward from high school going into college.
Or whatever, yeah.
So we're small, and we're purposely small. And
like the ratio would be?
Like 15 to 1 is what we try to keep the ratio at. So we try to keep class sizes.
So what's
right
normal right now in
the
traditional school setting?
When I was at my school in Indianapolis, I pushed to keep my classes 25 or less, and that was often difficult. So it is not uncommon to see classes above 25.
Gotcha.
In larger areas. There's a teacher shortage.
Yeah.
So that's one big challenge that as an administrator you have is you got to have licensed teachers to teach the classes, and then there's some financial constraints that we're under when you run a building. You got a budget, and so you can only, if you're going to have a counselor, you're going to have this, you're going to have that. Sometimes it means, all right, I have to have one less teacher to have these other resources, and that can cause class sizes to go up as well.
We call that robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
You call it what?
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
I'm going to use that today when I get home. Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Pay Paul. You know, you got to make trade-offs, right? It's the trade-off.
But some people think when you go to a smaller school, then that means that there are going to be way less options. Now, there are some less options. Like we don't have a band or a choir program, unfortunately. When you're as small as we are, it's very difficult. At my middle school that I was a principal over for many years, we were 400, and then with the whole school I was over 700. It was difficult to have enough students to put together a full band in that size. When you're 100 high school students, it's difficult to put together a band. So we don't have a band or a choir. We do offer all the credits that you need to be able to earn your Core 40 diploma, which is the traditional diploma that we push our students to earn here in Indiana. But we also have partnered with J. Everlight Career Center, Ivy Tech out of Noblesville, to provide opportunities for our students to take a more hands-on approach. So welding, auto repair, CNA, cosmetology, culinary arts. So through those two groups, we also have some partnerships with some businesses that we're continuing to go. One of those is ABC Construction, where our students can get hands-on training and work towards earning credits for manufacturing and construction trades. So through those partnerships, which many of the bigger schools partner together to be able to offer, more opportunities for their students. So we're partners with a lot of the same school districts around us. So just because students come to options doesn't mean they're going to miss out on that bigger school opportunity. The key just for us is that it allows us through those partnerships to still do what is most important to us, which is that relationship aspect. Having an advisor, having the small class sizes, giving our students more attention, time. A lot of our students come to us because, like I said, they weren't finding the success that they wanted at the larger school. So that could have been academically. And so if it's academically, we have special education teachers, just like the regular schools have, the regular public schools. So we do work with students with IEPs. I used to get that question a lot from the board when I was working. Do you have any students with IEPs? Oh yes, we have lots of them. No different than any other school.
Yeah. So what about college readiness?
So,
were you reading my mind?
We've worked enough together that I probably was.
Or were you looking at my crib notes?
I don't see it. I don't have my glasses on.
Those classes that I had mentioned before, a lot of those are dual credit courses where students earn college credit, especially with our Ivy Tech partnership. But then also we have students who take dual credit courses. So they may take government, and which also counts as Poli-Sci 130. And so through Ivy Tech, and they earn dual credits that they can take with them to go off to college. Several of our students this past year have enrolled and are all off to college. They've been messaging me, getting copies of transcripts for themselves. We had a handful of juniors who graduated early last year.
Explain that. I thought that was really neat because I'm from Georgia. I went to school in Georgia, and one thing I like about schools down in the South, which I really didn't see here, and I told you about that, the ability to graduate early, get the credits, and then more importantly, to even go to summer school. And you guys offer summer school, which is unusual for the Midwest.
Yeah, so we do offer summer school. In fact, I just got done running summer school. We finished about 2 weeks ago now. As an opportunity for our students to catch up. And some to get ahead. So I had some incoming freshmen, some freshman students, and other students who were working on getting some credits so they could graduate early. So we had 5 juniors at the Carmel campus who graduated early. Almost all of them are going off to college. We have one who's planning to enter the military and then college. That's an option. We don't push it all the time for our students, but for some of our students, for them, in their life circumstance they're in, moving forward and getting to college is the best bet for them. We try to encourage them to stay on and say, well, why don't you take college classes through us and save yourself a little bit of money.
Yeah.
So some of them, we do have students who are staying on who could have graduated, but are like, no, I'll take your classes. They're free.
Oh, yeah. My child's in several AP classes for that reason. I mean, I was like, help your mama out, College
what's
is
that
very
money
expensive.
thing you just said? What was that thing? You don't want your child to rob Peter to pay Paul.
To pay Paul, yeah. So that's kind of interesting. Here's my question. Okay, so if Ball State is the sponsor, are they sort of advocating that you steer students back to their campus? I mean, is there some sort of reciprocation there where students can go there? Is there any advantage, or how do you guys do scholarships, those sorts of things? What's that look like?
So there's no special relationship when it comes to credits with Ball State.
Okay.
We do have a partnership with Ivy Tech that allows us to do credits with our students, mostly on our pocket. The school pays for the classes. But we do have a couple scholarships. One of our scholarships we offer is the Abby White Scholarship, named after a former graduate who had passed away in an accident, a four-wheeling accident. And that's named after Abby, and that goes to a senior every year can earn that scholarship. There's a process. They write an essay about how they've grown, how they've changed over time through high school and going through options. And then we also have an SI scholarship, so that stands for Senior Institute. Not only do we support students and help our students to graduate and make sure they're meeting all of the minimum requirements, right? We also require all of our graduates to complete a project, or a senior capstone project, and it's called Senior Institute. And they have to partner with a nonprofit organization of their choosing, and they have to set up a project with them. So whether that's direct support, so it might be like going into the Boys and Girls Club and putting together a project where you're directly supporting students and working with kids at the Boys and Girls Club. Could be through advocacy. So we had a student who worked with the Humane Society during COVID, and he created a QR code flyer that he put out, and you could scan it, and it took you to resources on how to adopt animals. It took you to a fundraiser to raise funds to help support the animal shelter, and then just also information about how to foster animals. And then another one could be through fundraising, or we had a student, our valedictorian this past year, where she collected toys for Riley's Children's Hospital. She was a Riley child herself growing up, and so she knew how important it was to get that little toy that you were there when you're going through such a scary experience.
Yeah.
And so she collected over 200 toys to fill their closet for kids who were going to go through what she went through.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. You know, one of the things is that it's important not just to educate our kids, but to teach them life skills. And, you know, what is it like actually being out in the community, working with people, building those communication skills, you know, and some of their business skills and so forth. I know that our time is kind of getting away from us, but this has been a pleasure, and I want to talk about this a little bit. When we, you know, there's a big push right now around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we want to make sure that we have a chance to talk about that, because I think that is so important, particularly as our children go to school, and having the opportunity to feel like not only they belong, but they are treated equally. And I know that was something that you said, which sort of brought this up for me. You know, maybe a couple months, I'm not sure of the time frame, was tuned in, and my day job, let me just qualify this. I work for Eli Lilly and Company. I am the communications director for diversity and inclusion, social impact, and some other areas, so it's very dear to my heart. But from a school standpoint, I was sort of saddened when I read an article up in the Carmel school system about parents really struggling and basically pushing back on the fact that the Carmel school system recognized a need to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. And I think one of the things that I read was that they were really wanting to help the staff to come along, because whether we like it or not, there's unconscious bias that resides for people of different ethnicities, religious beliefs. If it wasn't, we'd all be here and life would be great, wouldn't it? I mean, but you see everything happening within our own world right now, right? We just recently had a lot of Jewish anti-Semitism violence. We had the Asian hate crimes. We already know what the whole George Floyd murder situation did for us. So not going all into that, but I would just be interested to know, because I was really saddened, because I think that's something that could help us all to learn if we just show some compassion, empathy, and willingness to listen, to really understand what it feels like. What are you doing at Options? How does Options handle their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, or are there any initiatives just to ensure that we are keenly in tune, you know, with people of different ethnicities and races and so forth?
Well, this is an area that is difficult. I'm originally from Flint, Michigan, so we all know
the water.
We all know Flint. The water was just the most recent
exactly.
trauma there. And,
oh my goodness.
So I'm originally from there, and then we moved here to the south side of Indianapolis, not too far away from where we're all sitting right now. And my minor is in multicultural education. So you hit a very, important topic. We don't know our own biases until we're finally confronted with them.
Correct.
And so I think that people who are struggling with understanding, or who are speaking out, I think that just comes from not understanding or knowing. It comes from a little concern that, my child has been doing very well and has been finding a lot of success. Why do we need to change things? When things aren't going well, Andre decided, hey, things aren't going the best. I'm going to make a decision and talk with my daughter, and we're going to make a family decision about what's best for her. I feel like some of the parents feel that the decision, or me making decision, or me having input, was kind of taken away from them and was forced upon. And I think from sitting in a room with teachers I've gone through similar training from different groups when I was in Indianapolis, and I think when you think that, oh no, I care about everyone, you don't see or know or recognize, and it might not be that. Some people take it as a personal attack too. When you're like, hey, we're going to go do this training. Like, well, why do I need to be trained? What have I done that makes you think that? Or when have I ever done anything that makes you question that? Or how could you think that about me? And I think we go to school to learn and we become teachers through education, but they continually to ask us to renew our license, and to do that we have to continually be educated.
Yeah, I agree.
And this
I
is
agree.
another topic where we need to continually be educated. It's not something that we can look back and go, well, history told us these things and we learned from them. They're still ever changing.
Yeah.
And we need to reflect back and look at, and as we continue to diversify, we need to understand that there are more than one or two or three communities, and you can't look at one person and go, I know what your experiences are, and I know, we do that sometimes. We look at a person and we're like, oh yes, I know, the history tied with this group, and
yeah,
you're like, well.
So we put it across
background
the
is
whole
different.
group, something that may have happened, and then it all of a sudden impacts everybody. But what I thought was, this is what I found kind of profound here, is that the individual said, and this is where I cringe, and maybe because I am an African American woman, but the parent said, my kid does not see color or gender, and I have to call bullshit on that. How do you not see it? I mean, now
what we said was that we believe that it starts in the home, and then it gets into the school, and the school has to deal with it.
The school has to sort of reverse some of the things that are taught, because you're right. We're not taught to be racist.
Right.
We're not taught to be, bigots. We're not taught to hate. That's
our kids listen and they respond
to
or they
what
don't
they hear.
respond.
Well, and if it's not in the home, it's somewhere. Either in
Well,
the
I think that's a
Right.
fair statement right there.
Yeah.
Because it's not always in the home.
That's right. It's somewhere.
also sometimes how many adult cartoons or things that are out there that have adult humor in them
Right.
that we can understand and we can process.
And they can't
But
process.
kids
And they
can't. Yeah.
And they don't understand.
Or how
get.
much does social media play a factor in propagating these things? I mean, one of the things she said, and this critical race theory, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, it's really, it's not a conspiracy here that
It
we
exists.
we want to to reprogram somebody. No, I think it's interesting, yeah. And how does schools, because we know how we deal with it as in corporations, right? And in but you've got people with the mentality, in most cases, I won't say all now, you give them too much credit, but in most cases, to be able to understand and discern, right? If we're given that information. As a child, maybe not so much, and I get that.
Right, and I think one of the things we need to focus on is the person in that role and the training they're trying to put forth often is for the educators,
not
as
the
adults.
Yeah,
it's not for the
kids. Right, the kids just want to belong.
We want the adults to have the information
Yes.
to help them when making decisions and to help them think about situations a little bit differently as they approach things. And so you were asking about what do we do at Options, and I think we've been lucky in the sense that our work in trying to work with all different types of students who haven't found success, if it was one little thing that you could fix and those students will automatically find success, well, then the other school districts would be doing them. Yeah. And we're seen positively by the school districts we work in and work around, because they know that we're working with a group of students that takes a lot of resources to work with those students, and if they had all the resources at their disposal, then they would tackle all of those problems, but they can't. They have limited resources to be able to get the job done. And
lots and lots of students.
So they count on us to help those students who come over, and they recommend students to come to us. Now, I know Andre had mentioned earlier, kind of like we're not supposed to say that. A lot of that comes from what you were saying, the butts in the seats funding. Mm-hmm. And so if you remember back November 19th, not this year, the year before, we had the big rally downtown for education.
Yes.
And that was a tough day for me. It was my birthday. That's one of the reasons I always remember it. But that's a tough day for me as a leader of a charter school. And that day they had announced that they were changing the leadership at my old school, so I was a little sad to see some people that I had known as IPS continued to change and support and help Madonna and continue down the path that we had put it on of success. I remember that day, and I remember watching the teachers come across and talk about what they need. And charter schools were mentioned in negative light several times because they're seen as a competition. Well, they're taking dollars.
Yeah,
right? And I get that. I do get that understanding. Yeah. And if you want to do black, white, and not have grays, then sure, you could say, oh, they're taking funding because that kid was there, now they're here. but the funding follows child.
Yes.
And so the funding's going to take care of the person who needs it, the kid.
Yep.
I got two-part questions that we're going to clear up first. The first, we're not here to bash any school, so let's clear that. The second part we need to realize is a child that attends option school is not necessarily a gangbanger, poor, trash, or any of these things. It's a school of learning and education. We just went through a serious transition with these kids going to school. Now they got to go back into school. So let's go back before the pandemic and go forward before we close out today's show. You deal with these kids just as much as we deal with our kids when we get home. What are some of the things that have been most challenging before the pandemic and
during
and after that you had to deal with, that you go, wow, these are some things I need to take notes on, because you see them going to transfer into the next period?
So I think one of the biggest things that I face, especially at options and the students that we work with, and then in education when I was in the inner city as well, is not being successful in school. You begin to not want to be at school. If you're not good at something,
right,
you don't want to spend 8 hours a day doing something you're not good at, or you feel you're not good at.
What do you do? Stop right there. What do you do when that happens?
How do you build that confidence?
How do you deal with just that particular thing? They're getting older. Clearly, the pressure is on right now. The pressure's on. Give me the blueprint. How do you deal with that child?
So when we have students who come to us who don't want to be at school anymore, that's the whole belong, believe, achieve. One of the most important things we do is we try to make them feel welcome. And we try to get to know them. Their advisor works hard to get to know them. I work hard to try to get to know them. A whole staff tries to work hard to get to know that student and who they are, and try to get to know them as a person. We'll eventually get to the helping them with,
the
passing
academic
math.
part. Yeah, the academic part.
But we got to get them to feel like that the adults around them care and that they want to be here. Because when you've not been good at something for a long time, you begin to...
And you've probably been told you're not very good at it, too.
Well,
and
the report card tells you.
Yeah.
Nobody has to say a word. They can be the nicest people in the world, but when I keep getting an F from you every time I see you, I begin to wonder.
Yeah.
And then, and continuing that, you become angry. I mean, like, you don't do well at school, now I'm going to go to school. I don't want to be at school, and now I'm forced to be here.
Yeah.
And so you're already upset. So if somebody says, hey, I need you to go do... Well, why are you always pick... That begins sometimes to happen for some of the... Or they begin to shut down. I don't want to go to school. I don't feel well. I'm tired. I'm
What's
sick.
the protocol from that when that happens?
First thing is, when I have a kid if a kid is coming and they're new to us, we try to go out of our way to make sure they felt welcomed.
Yeah.
Second, if they're absent or missing, we call immediately, and we keep calling until we get a hold of somebody and we talk to somebody. Not because attendance is the most important thing in the world. Yeah, we want...
But what's going on? Yeah.
But we want that kid to know we miss them.
Yeah.
Even if they're legitimately sick and we know ahead of time, we'll still call
just
and
to
be
check
like,
on them.
Oh, okay. Well, that way the kid, who's calling you? Oh, it's the school. Why are they calling you? They know I'm out. They just calling to check on you. They want to see how you're doing. Oh, they're really checking to see how I'm doing? Yeah. I do.
I know.
You know
we
what?
care.
That's huge, though, because I think, we're at the top of the hour, but certainly that's an element that I'm seeing here, is that you guys are small enough that you can give that extra attention that is beyond just having a math class, as you say, but it's really helping people with their mental, emotional things to deal with, to feel like they have a place there. And I can imagine that the success that you've been able to see must be so gratifying. I mean,
it is. We've seen some kids graduating, and we've had some kids who've come to us, and you're like, wow, you're junior and you have 7 credits. You've got to have 40 to graduate. And we get them across the stage. We work with them. Summer school we mentioned. We have lots of extra ways that we work with some of them to help them catch up on some of their credits, to get them to graduation. And for some of our kids, that's just the next step, right? They're going to go to college, or they've taken advantage of a certificate, or they're going to go into the workforce
into a
in a
trade
certificate
or something.
And some of them, it's just a party that they graduated, because you know what? We didn't see that coming for some of them before they came to meet with us.
Before we go off the air, give me, without mentioning the student name, one of your most surprising cases that came in trouble.
Success stories.
And it was a success before we wrap up.
So our valedictorian this past year, if you go to our website, optionsschools.org, you can see a little bit of her story. She talks, doesn't talk about the fact that she became our valedictorian last year yet because it was filmed last year. But she loved school or the thought of school. And then when she started going to school, she found out she wasn't great at it. And then she ended up having determining she had diabetes. And she began really struggling at school, having to spend a lot of time in the hospital. When she came, she did not do so hot her first year of school as a high schooler, did not earn very many credits. And so then she advocated with her parents, like, I want to see what else is out there. And so they came across options and came to options. And so she came to options with mostly Fs her first year. So you can imagine her GPA was very low, below a 2, below 1. And then she finished with above a 3.0 GPA, almost I think a 3.5 by the time she got done her senior year, and was our valedictorian.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah.
Somebody who didn't want to go to school anymore to valedictorian.
See, I always say a little love goes a long way.
And with that said, this has been the Andre The Beast Show. We'd like to thank Mike for coming in. And hey, people, please visit Options Westfield. Meet with Mike if you feel that your kid needs a little bit more than just what's been given. And I also like to thank you for really working with me and my daughter. I've seen the success. I know the program works. You definitely have kept that beast frame of mind, and that's what this show is about.
Okay. Taking
it and moving it forward. I'd like to thank my co-host, Yolanda Smith. Remember, she's the owner of Branding for Success. I got it right.
Yes, you did. Yay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Andre The Beast Show.
Show.